Hello everyone, myself Sanjana Naik, Assistant Professor in Economics in DM's College and Research Center, Asagaon. The module which I am going to present is Liquidity Preference and the Rate of Interest from Money in Modern Economy Unit. Outline in this particular module, I will be covering up the demand for money or motives for liquidity preference, the meaning of liquidity preference theory of rate of interest, the demand for money in two set economy, and determination of rate of interest. Learning outcome after completion of this particular e-module, students will be able to understand the liquidity preference and the rate of interest theory. Also, they will be able to apply the knowledge of liquidity preference in their day-to-day life decision making. We'll see the first subtopic, that is demand for money or motives of liquidity preference. The desire for liquidity arises because of three motives, or liquidity preference of a particular individual depends upon several considerations, and the desire for liquidity preferences arises out of these three basic motive, that is transaction demand, precautionary demand, and speculative demand. Now, what is this transaction demand? Transaction demand for money is, or transaction motive relates to the demand for money or the need for money balances for the current transaction of individuals and business firms. Individuals hold cash in order to bridge the interval between receipts of income and its expenditure. In other words, people hold money or cash balances for transaction purposes because receipts of money and payments do not coincide. Most of the people receive their income weekly or monthly, while expenditure goes on day by day. A certain amount of ready money, therefore, is kept in hand to make the current payment. The next motive for demand for money is precautionary motive. Precautionary motive for holding money refers to the desire of the people to hold cash balances for unforeseen contingencies. People hold a certain amount of money to provide for danger of unemployment, sickness, accidents, and other uncertain perils. The amount of money demanded from this motive will depend on the psychology of the individual and the condition in which he lives. The third motive is the speculative motive. Speculative motive of the people relates to the desire to hold one's resources in liquid form in order to take advantage of the market movement regarding the future changes in the rate of interest. The notion of holding money for speculative motive was a new and revolutionary Keynesian idea. Money held under the speculative motive serves as a store of value as money held under the precautionary motive does. But it is a store of money meant for different purposes. The cash held under this particular motive is used to make speculative gains by dealing in bonds whose prices fluctuates. So these are the three basic motives of demand for money. The next one is the Keynesian liquidity preference theory of rate of interest. In macroeconomic theory, liquidity preference is the demand for money considered as liquidity. Now, the concept was first developed by John Maynard Keynes in his book, The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money in the year 1936 to explain the determination of rate of interest by the supply and demand for money. According to him, that is according to J.M. Keynes, interest is a reward for parting with liquidity for specified period. Rate of interest is determined by the liquidity preference or the demand for money to hold and the supply of money known as the liquidity preference theory. In order to understand the liquidity preference theory, we'll see the concept of demand for money in a two asset economy. Now, in a two asset economy, in order to explain the demand for money and the interest rate determination, Keynes assumed simplified economy wherein there are two assets which people can keep in their portfolio balances. Now, these two assets are the money in the form of currency and demand deposits in which there is no interest which is being earned, and the second one is long term bonds. Now, it is important to note over here that rate of interest and bond prices are inversely related to each other. The demand for money by the people depends upon how they decide for balanced portfolio between money and bonds. Decisions about the portfolio balances can be influenced by two factors. That is, demand for money by the people depends upon how they decide to balance their portfolios between money and bonds. Now, the portfolio balance can influence by two factors. The first one is the higher the level of nominal income in a two asset economy, people would want to hold more money in their portfolio balances. The second one is higher the nominal rate of interest, the lower the demand for money for speculative motive. Now, this is the money demand curve. As you all can see, it is a downward sloping curve. Okay, so LP1 is the demand curve, a money demand curve, first money demand curve, and LP2 is the second money demand curve. So here on y-axis we have the rate of interest, and on the x-axis we have the quantity of money. So as the demand for money is inversely related to the rate of interest, the money demand curve at a given level of income, say, will be a downward sloping curve as shown over here. As I have said, MP1, which is the money demand curve. So as the level of money income increases, supposing from Y1 to Y2, the money demand curve also shifts its position, okay, to a higher side, forming a new money demand curve, that is LP2. Now, determination of rate of interest, or we'll see the equilibrium in the money market. The rate of interest is determined by demand for money and supply of money. So the rate of interest according to J.M. Keynes is determined by money demand and money supply. The factors which determine the demand for money have been explained over here. The supply of money at a given time is fixed by the monetary authority, that is by the monetary authority of that particular nation. For example, in India we have the monetary authority, the Reserve Bank of India. So the money supply is being fixed by the monetary authority of the country. So as you all can see from this particular figure, okay, LP is the demand curve for money at a given level of nominal income. Okay, this is the curve. Okay, also LP can be renamed or it can be called as MD curve, that is money demand curve. So MD is the demand curve for money at a given level of nominal income. The money supply curve is a vertical straight line, okay, over here. So y-axis shows the rate of interest, x-axis shows the quantity of money. So this is the money supply curve, okay, which is being fixed by the monetary authority of the nation. Here we are taking these numbers, these figures in terms of crores. So this is 200 crores is the money supply which is being fixed by the 200 crores of rupees. That is the money supply fixed by the monetary authority. It will be seen that the quantity demanded of money equals the money supplied at this particular point, that is E point, wherein the rate of interest is 10%. So the money market is in equilibrium at 10% rate of interest. So there will be disequilibrium if the rate of interest is higher or lower than 10%. So suppose the rate of interest is 12%, that is here 12%. It will be seen that 12% rate of interest, supply of money exceeds the demand for money. So the excess supply of money reflects that people do not want to hold as much money in their portfolios as the monetary authority made it available to them. So people holding asset in the present two asset economy would react this excess money supply with them by buying bonds and thus replace some money in their portfolios with bonds. So since the total supply at a given moment remain fixed, it cannot reduce by buying bonds by individual. So this bond buying sphere would lead to the rise in the prices of bonds. So this rise in bond prices means there will be fall in the rate of interest, as will be seen from this particular figure, that it will fall to the original equilibrium and it will come down to 10%. Now, on the other hand, if the rate of interest is lower than the lower than the equilibrium, that is, if it is 8%, this shows that there is excess demand for money. As a transaction of this exceeds the demand for money, people would like to sell their bonds in order to obtain greater quantity of money for holding a lower rate of interest, and the stock of money remaining fixed. The attempt by the people to hold more money balances at the rate of interest lower than the equilibrium level through sale of bonds will only cause the bond prices to fall, and the fall in bond prices implies that rise in the rate of interest. So again, the rate of interest will come to the original equilibrium, that is at 10%. Now in this panel, this is from panel A. Now this particular panel B explains the effect of increase in the money supply on the rate of interest. Here MD is the money demand curve. To begin with, ON is the quantity of money available. Rate of interest will be determined whether demand for money is in balance or equal to fixed supply of money, that is at ON. Now it is clear from the figure that the demand for money is equal to ON quantity of money at OR rate of interest. So this at this particular OR rate of interest, this is the quantity of money, that is ON is the quantity of money. Now what happens is, hence the OR is in equilibrium at the rate of interest, we are assuming that there is change in the expectation and nominal income. An increase in quantity of money will lower the rate of interest. So when the quantity of money increases from ON to ON dash, the rate of interest falls from OR to OR dash, because the new quantity of money is ON dash. So when the quantity of money increases from ON to ON dash, the rate of interest also falls from OR to OR1. Given the money demand curve or the liquidity preference, an increase in quantity of money brings down the rate of interest. So these are the references, that is H.L. Ahuja, Macroeconomics Theory and Policy, and Macroeconomics by Don Fisher. Thank you.